I think I'm mic'd up. Am I mic'd up? Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Glenn. I want to thank everybody for coming in on this rainy Thursday morning. It's really exciting to see this group here and as many people as we have on this program. We started this task force a number of years ago with the hope of trying to share different ideas and to demonstrate to the policymakers and others that business is doing a tremendous amount of work in this area to deal with the scourge of human trafficking, whether it's labor trafficking in a supply chain or sex trafficking in the out in the general community. And we have, I think, worked very hard to convey our message to policymakers and other partners that this is an important thing, and there's a lot of really good work being done. Because there tends to be a desire to regulate in this space among policymakers, because I think we all can align around the fact that it's a real problem, and obviously laws and regulations are one way to resolve a problem. But I also think that there's an awful lot of innovation and creativity that is being used and deployed by companies in partnership with non-governmental organizations and business federations that are dealing with the problems in ways that, frankly, no regulation or singular regulation could resolve. And so what we're going to hear today is a really wide perspective of different ways different companies deal with things. And so I thought it was very fitting to start with Nikki Clifton from UPS, which is a company in an industry that is not typically viewed as in an industry where there's a high risk of human trafficking. Yet UPS is one of the leaders in our corporate community on the area of dealing with the problem of human trafficking. And so we thought it very fitting to sort of bring you to the table and have that first conversation. So you're in a very unique industry in the area of human trafficking. Why is UPS focused on this issue?
Thank you for having me here today, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting this opportunity. It's really an important topic, and it's one that did not come to us easily or really as anticipated. I'm sure a number of you are in the audience thinking, I don't know why a company would want to take the risk to put their brand out there, to associate themselves with anti-human trafficking issues, and that's frankly what we thought when the issue first presented itself. We got involved because of a phone call, and the phone call came from the Attorney General of Georgia, and uniquely, it was around the NCAA Final Four basketball tournament, big sporting event that Atlanta was hosting, and he wanted a number of companies to help fund billboards to help raise awareness in the city. And if you think about what's happening in Atlanta in a couple of weeks, there's another big game coming up. And just last week, I was with the now Attorney General of Georgia, Chris Carr, helping him host anti-human trafficking training for transportation leaders in our corporate office, because big sporting events act as a draw for human trafficking. Atlanta, where UPS is based, is one of the #1 cities for domestic minor sex trafficking, unfortunately. And the statistics are astonishing. At last count, sex trafficking raised about $290 million a year, which is more money than the city of Atlanta's illegal gun and drug trade combined. And when we started looking into what human trafficking, mostly sex trafficking, was doing for the city of Atlanta from a reputation standpoint, it just did not feel right. And so we helped to fund the billboards, but the more we talked to community leaders, we realized that employee awareness and employee engagement was really the first step, because when you first start talking about this issue, nobody really wants to dig into it. And it's something that it's difficult, it's seedy, you don't want to think that it's right there in your backyard, but the statistics bore out for us in Atlanta that it was in our backyard. There was no question about it. And government officials were coming to businesses asking for our help. And so that was the first indicator that we could be helpful. They wanted us to help from a monetary standpoint, but the more we thought about it, there was a lot more that we could do than write a check. And so we started looking at training for our drivers, because our drivers are everywhere. And I know I don't look like I was a UPS driver, but I had to drive for 3.5 months in Columbia, Maryland, and you would be surprised what we see and the opportunity that we have to be able to really act as community safety guardians. When I was driving on my route, I would see kids that were skipping school. I knew who was not where they were supposed to be, and sometimes I would say, go back home, you know, I know what you're doing. And so from that context, we knew that our drivers were positioned to do the right thing if we gave them the training. And so we started doing that. And it's really been, I think, an opportunity that has grown exponentially. It's moved from just being the right thing to do to being something culturally that our employees have really, really gotten excited about, all the way up to our CEO. So
that's really exciting. So it's really focused on training and awareness and heightening awareness within the driver community for UPS.
That was the outset, and so because that's where we felt like we could have the biggest initiative from the transportation industry. The statistics are really shocking in terms of the modes of transportation that are being used to facilitate human trafficking. And so there's an article on your table where Delta's CEO Ed Bastian is talking about the fact that 70% of survivors have come through the airports or have been facilitated through the airline community. And we know that in the trucking industry, girls and boys are being sold at truck stops. We know that because our drivers are telling us. And when we started looking at this training, our drivers were reporting to us that they had been confronted, they had been solicited. And in some instances, they didn't realize what to do. They didn't report it. They weren't facilitating or buying it, but they were like, you know what, we didn't really know what to do. And so our goal is not only to help train for them to make tips, but also to make sure that they understand that it's against our policy to use our corporate assets to further sex trafficking. And as a federal contractor, we're required to have a human trafficking policy. We're not required to train, though. And so I think our efforts to go beyond what's legally required has been because we realize that we really can make a difference. So our program started with the policy, making sure that we had a strong policy that was disseminated and that folks understood that we don't want them using our corporate assets for buying sex. And that was important because it gets to the root of the issue, which is demand. And I think for all of you, if I can leave you with anything, it's looking at how to curb the demand side. Because if you don't have a buyer, then you don't have a victim. And the statistics show, unfortunately, that the buyers are everyday people. And they are everyday guys. This is a white-collar crime. It's not a lot of poor people who are out soliciting sex. This is a white-collar crime with folks who have access, they have time, they have resources. And if you think about things like the NCAA Final Four tournaments, if you think about the Super Bowl, who's coming to those events? It's people with money and time. And so from an entertainment standpoint, you have to get to those buyers when they're at work. And you have to help them understand that the policies prohibit engaging in that kind of activity, and then also that they can play a role, if they're not engaging, they can play a role in providing good tips and good resources. So that's what we're aiming to do.
That's great. So when we were talking about this panel and this program, you talked about some additional sort of ancillary benefits of having this very robust program and the training program that you all have developed over the years. Can you talk a little bit about that, share that with some of the companies in the room to talk about some of the unintended benefits of the program?
And I will start by saying that trying to train 100,000 people is no easy undertaking. And so we partnered with Truckers Against Trafficking, which is a fantastic organization. They're based in Colorado because they understand our workforce. And so we were able to use them to help customize DVDs and webinars and wallet cards that we could easily hand out to our drivers. We also are engaging with a group called BEST, Businesses Ending Slavery and Trafficking, to help us customize information for our managers, because we need our management team to really understand why this is an imperative. So finding those community resources and finding those partners that can really help you just create a really good, strong policy right off the bat is important. And I think in terms of the ancillary benefits, we didn't realize how much this would engage our employees. We are a very diverse workforce. We are in 220 countries around the world. We are based in Atlanta, but our drivers are everywhere. We deliver to all zip codes. And I've been really surprised at the anecdotal feedback from our drivers, from our management team, about how they feel about UPS stepping up to this issue. We were just on the National Mall last week. We brought the Attorney General of DC and some other folks, members of Congress, onto the mall to tour a mobile museum that Truckers Against Trafficking has been touring around the country. And to see people's faces when they emerge from this mobile museum and understand what human trafficking looks like in their backyard. To see our driver who drove the tractor trailer around the country, and we provide in-kind moves of this transportation, this mobile museum. To see him talk about how proud he is to be affiliated with this initiative it's been absolutely amazing. This issue has also sparked engagement with elected officials in ways that we did not expect. I'm a member of our government affairs team. I am a lawyer, and I typically am on the proactive sort of side of trying to engage from a government affairs perspective, and you want to be able to talk to members of Congress about something good and tell them about something that you're doing for your community. And I've been really surprised at how interested members are in this issue. It is a bipartisan issue. Legislation was passed last year from a bipartisan perspective on taking down Backpage.com. And so it's been a really good way to engage not only with our employees, but also with members of Congress, with elected officials, all the way from the attorneys general to senators. And we've been really proud of that engagement.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much for your remarks. I know we have a full agenda, and we could probably talk for another 45 minutes, but I think our time has run, and I'm really looking forward to the broader program. And thank you very much for everything you and UPS is doing in this area. And we'll see you around.
Thank you. Thank you.